But our focus is, as we mentioned, is going to be on planning, college financial aid planning. So my contact information is here, and you'll be able to see this again at the end of the presentation as well. But moving on, want to introduce Agm Institute. And Agm Institute, as I mentioned, is the company that I represent, established in 2005. We are a major college planning service, one of many in the U.S., of course, but we have serviced quite a few people, and we have locations throughout the country, as you see here. We have over 2,900 plus U.S. colleges in our proprietary database. We look at professional college aid planning. That's what our company mainly does. We have served over 8,000 plus clients. And actually, this number is actually probably closer to 9,000 as of right now. And as added value programs, we have various global leadership and internship programs that we also offer. But as I mentioned, our focus will be on financial aid planning for college for students and their families. Okay, so moving right along. These are the many planning issues that parents and students face moving forward as they prepare for college. What we're going to focus on mainly is the financial aid aspect, but as you can see, families do face academic issues in regards to their GPA, if they choose to take the ACT or SATs, college admissions, the applications, the essays, recommendations, that is a major part of it. But when we get into the meat of it, when we're talking about how we can get students financially prepared and situated in the college, we're looking at financial aid, taking into consideration our FAFSA. Everybody's heard of the FAFSA form. And there is another form as well that's mostly private colleges use, which is the CSS profile financial aid application. And it all boils down to applying a formula to those two in order to see how much aid each student that applies will be awarded. Taking into consideration family income, high income, low income, doesn't matter, that's still included. Then you can take into consideration any special circumstances, job loss, anything else that may come about. And it all boils down to asset planning. All these things are related to college. We offer assistance in planning students to address academic issues, college admissions, assistance with applications, essays, and recommendations. And if you're not aware what FAFSA is, that stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That is what is offered to students to fill out to get as much money from the federal government as far as aid is concerned. The CSS profile, as I mentioned, is mainly used by private institutions. It's mainly used by over 334 private institutions to determine institutional aid assistance. So that's separate from what FAFSA does. Family income and its effects on the financial aid process, low to high income, as I mentioned, is affected, and also asset planning as it pertains to the entire process. Cost of attendance, everybody wants to know how much it's going to cost to send our kids to college. So for the 21-22 academic year, the average price of tuition and fees at major universities came to $38,070 at private colleges, $10,740 at public colleges for in-state residents, and averages $27,560 at public colleges for out-of-state residents. Now, this is information according to collegedata.com. If we're looking at our information here, we see the University of Georgia, which is a public institution. Looking at on this list, they are priced at the lowest at $27,958. And that's in-state. Out of state, there's a difference. It's always higher out of state at $47,372. While the list of private institutions are highlighted in orange and are priced higher, there is no difference if you notice as called for costs pertaining in-state versus out of state. But looking at Georgetown, you see what Georgetown boosts the highest at $82,800. I'm sorry, $82,080 per year, excuse me. If we're going over to private institutions completely, you see these prices here. Like Ivy League schools and other notable private universities, they also boast higher cost of attendance versus that of public colleges and universities. So attempting to pay any amount out of pocket without proper planning is pretty much an insurmountable. It's an insurmountable process for most all people, all families. We want to look at college expenses. College years to attend to 2021, 2025. First year college costs $66,000. That's tuition, room, board, and fees. If you add wardrobe, transportation, books, insurance, medical, you're looking at another $6,000 for a first year total of $72,000. Total cost of a four-year education can amount to approximately $334,152. And that's for each student. So you're going to ask, how much education savings is yearly required? If you're looking at total cost of a four-year education, as I mentioned, that's $334,000. Looking at a net interest rate of around 5% over a 7-year period, that amounts to $41,041 per year. Still mind-blowing. So what exactly is college financial aid? You're looking, that's based on a number of factors, but you can break this down into two categories, man. There's merit-based aid, excuse me, which includes personal talents and relative awards. And so studentaid.gov defines financial aid as money to help you pay for college or career school through grants, work study, loans, scholarships, and this is all to help make your college or your college career, more affordable. And there's also need-based aid. Now this looks at both the parent or parent/guardian and the student and takes into account income, assets, number of students, household size, and business net worth, if applicable. Moving on. So let's break down college cost of attendance for college. As I mentioned, we're looking at tuition, room and board, fees, transportation, personal expenses. So the cost of attendance is a college total estimated expenses for 1 year. And as I mentioned, including tuition, room and board, books, supplies, transportation, loan fees, and any other miscellaneous expenses. A school's cost of attendance is used to determine students' eligibility for financial aid, such as grants and loans. This all equals the greater total need. With students and parents' income taken into consideration, we're looking at assets, including cash savings, investments, properties, number of students enrolling in college, household size, as I mentioned, net worth of business. So the total financial contributions plus parent contributions includes income from all the assets that I mentioned, using various methods. It also affects the number of students enrolling in college and the number of persons residing in the household. And as I continue to say, the net worth of a business, if that is applicable. Now, there are methods that are used in order to calculate these things. And they are to come up with the expected family contribution. It's trying not to get ahead of myself, I apologize. The methods that are used are federal methodology, and this formula is used by the federal government to determine your expected family contribution. That's the EFC. For Pell Grants, campus-based programs, federal subsidized student loan programs. Then there's the institutional methodology, which is used by colleges and universities to get a sound measure of family strength. It's developed and maintained by the College Board in partnership with financial aid leaders and allows institutions to build a complete picture of a family situation to award aid equitably. There's one more method that is actually rarely used. It's called the consensus method. And that deals exclusively with the family's ability to pay for college. It doesn't address issues associated with the mix of grant, loan, work study components of financial aid award. And it's often referred to as packaging of policies. The method is, as I mentioned, is used by a limited number of universities throughout the country. Both public and private colleges provide federal aid to students. And private institutions, however, often offer more money available to students through grants and scholarships. And that's usually due to their large endowment funds. In addition, they frequently offer more sizable tuition discounts other than public universities. Of these costs, only certain percentages represent gift aid, that's grants and scholarships, and self-help aid, which includes work study and loans. Getting to public versus private institutions and the way that they approach offering aid. Public institutions typically cover 60 to 72% of aid awarded in state and 42 to 48% awarded out of state. However, this number can be higher from state to state. California is a perfect example where they can offer greater than 82 to 86% higher coverage based on its population and mix of cultures and programs. If you look at private institutions, they typically cover 92 to 100% of aid awarded. Of this, 72% to 86% is in gifted aid, and once again, grants and scholarships, and 14 to 20% of self-help aid, once again, work study and loans. We're going to look at some steps within the financial aid procedures. We want to take these steps to apply for federal aid, which includes preparation and planning. We want to gather the necessary documents you'll need in order to apply for aid. The application filing, as I mentioned, that's FAFSA, the CSS profile, if your school requires it. And also remember to apply as early as possible to maximize your aid opportunity. Then you want to go through the evaluation of your financial aid award. You want to review and respond to aid and all offers and scholarships as timely as possible. As the schools, they have their own deadlines for acceptance. You be sure to accept the aid that you want and be sure that it covers your needs. You want to review your student aid report and take the opportunity to make any corrections if it is necessary. Now, there is an appeal process, which a lot of people are not really aware of. If you get your financial aid award and you feel that your award is just not adequate, or you might feel that there's been an under award, you can always ask for more money through an appeal. The appeal process includes contacting the university's financial aid office to ask about their appeals process and procedures. You want to identify any special circumstances or changes in your financial situation that affects your ability to pay for college. You would write your letter of appeal requesting more money in financial aid, and that is part of what our company does. We assist in these services. But however, we do not ask that you request a specific amount of money. You want the university to look at your situation objectively and know that the appeal is a genuine appeal, that you are looking to really get more aid because you really feel as though this is an award that is not adequate for your needs. Finally, you want to take the final steps to ensure that the financial aid process has been completed on your part. Get information and stay informed and ask any follow-up questions, like how your aid offer was calculated, for example. Be sure that you've researched and compared all financial aid offers awarded to you. This requires a careful review of all schools' financial aid packages. Be sure to reply to the aid offer and accept aid from your chosen school. Properly sign your loan agreement as well as the master promissory note. Sign up for and complete your school's entrance counseling session. This is usually required at most all colleges and universities where your students are going to attend. This ensures that you understand the terms and conditions of your loan and your rights and responsibilities. You'll learn about your loan, how the interest works, your options for repayment, and how to avoid delinquency and default. Now, there is a timeline in regards to submission of documents and applying. The financial aid process, it follows an annual timeline, as you see here. Looking at, I'm not quite sure if you can see this adequately, but I will go through this. Your CSS profile, like I said, if that's required, that submission is required. It starts actually on October 1st of each year. Additionally, early college admissions for 12th grade students is also available and it usually closes by mid-November. For this application, just keep that in mind. High school seniors must complete the application by that university's deadline. So each university has their own deadlines for the CSS profile submission. For your income tax filings, after applying for aid, whether you have been accepted into the university or not, you must provide up-to-date tax returns and any other required verified documents. Remember, the CSS profile, FAFSA, and any other separate application forms must be submitted timely, and you will require this and will require the student and their parents, if the student is dependent, to report all income. On your FAFSA filing, that begins on October 1st of each year as well. The federal deadline for submission is June 30th of the following year and must be submitted by the deadline of the state where the college is located. You may also be eligible for state assistance. However, it's important to be sure that you apply by the deadline set by that university as well. You must include your tax returns for your 2 prior years of income and to the university's registration and forgive me, I'm just missing my place here. You must include your prior 2 years of income tax returns prior to the year of the university's registration and records of your assets, including savings and checking account balances, as well as the value of investments. The school's financial aid offer. After receiving a letter of acceptance from the university, students will receive a statement of financial aid. This statement is sent to the university only after timely submission of all of the verified records required by the university. And I mentioned appeals. It's important to review whether the financial aid award offer you received is adequate. If it was under awarded or misawarded, be aware that universities will attempt to give you a small amount of financial aid each year, or will gradually reduce the free subsidy. That's the amount of free money that you get. But that will increase the paid subsidy. And that's the amount of money that is available for you to borrow. It's important to also avoid some common mistakes. I'm just going to list those here. Some major common mistakes is asking for help from non-licensed persons. It's important that you get accurate information from qualified professionals. Don't assume that your child will make the proper decisions in regards to any of your application information, financial aid information. Don't rely on your children. Please stay involved. Don't rely on the college or university to act in your best interest. While the school wants to offer aid to your child, the financial aid office's first obligation will always be to the institution. Don't assume your income is too high to receive financial aid. Even income from families, even high income families can qualify for financial aid. Even if the income will often not be based solely on how much the family makes. There are many different types of merit aid scholarships available for athletes, minorities, and students in science and technology, engineering, and mathematics programs. And aid may also be available for community services, such as volunteering or leadership abilities. Don't assume that your income is too low, that you'll automatically get most of the aid that you want. You and your child's total finances will be evaluated. So they're going to, as I mentioned, they're going to look at everything that is earned by you and your child. Lastly, never mark your college application with no financial need. Aid is available for everyone, just about in all situations. We're going to talk about the net price calculator for a second. The net price calculator is a tool designed to give an estimate of the actual cost you and your family may pay for college in a year to cover educational expenses. It is the institution's cost of attendance minus any grants, scholarships for which you may be eligible. Though this is designed with good intentions, take precautions when using the tool. Some net price calculators, they're not all built the same. Some of them ask students to provide financial information that's hard to access. And for others, the calculators might provide cost of attendance information as well as grant aid information that could be outdated. And since all net price calculators don't work in the same way, comparing prices from one college or another, that can be difficult. Also, read the fine print. Read the disclaimer. These companies that have these net price calculators available to use, they all should have disclaimers at the bottom. Please read those carefully. It should tell you that the information is not exclusive and it can change. Once again, I want to go back to the estimated family contribution. And that is, in the industry, is referred to as your EFC. And your EFC, as I mentioned, stands for expected family contribution, and it's calculated by income and assets from both the parents and the students. Calculation factors include income, financial assets, properties, business value, ages of those in your household size, your number of college students, and most importantly, any college savings plans that you have put in place, which includes your 529 plans, education IRAs, your Coverdell savings account, and others. As listed in the previous slide, personal income, business income is looked at. Contributions to 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, SEP IRAs, pensions, 403Bs. These are looked at. Assets that includes cash and savings, investment assets. They look at your primary home, investment property, etc. As I mentioned, your assets also include your 529 plans, your prepaid IRA, prepaid tuition plans, Coverdell savings accounts, your dependents in your household. I want to take a look at the importance of planning for college financial aid. It's taking a look at family aid. So based on a family of 4 and 1 student attending Georgetown University, which this table is an example of, the cost of attendance is $82,080 per year. Before applying the proper calculation of assets and expenses, when planning, the family expected contribution is at $23,000, thus reducing the federal financial aid received at $59,080 and leaving the student receiving less in grants and scholarships, work studies, and loans. Upon applying proper planning and all things considered as they are listed, such as the percentage of financial aid awarded, the percentage of grants and scholarships and work study and loans, during the planning process, the family's EFC, if you look at the after column, has been reduced to $8,000. And that's providing an additional savings of around $15,000 in aid. EFC savings, and this is the out-of-pocket cost of dollars saved of around $15,000 plus money awarded in grants and scholarships. The family can realize a savings of around $27,000 plus dollars. So with assistance in applying strategies like contributing to an investment like a Roth IRA in your name, shifting funds to products like tax advantage accounts or permanent life insurance policies can help in this instance. You want to minimize your cash on hand, lower the amount of money in your child's names, including checking and savings accounts, etc. You want to reduce your income where possible and plan out necessary lifestyle changes that's going to help you reach these goals. All of this will assist families in maximizing the opportunity to increase the chances for a bigger financial aid award for the child. So when do you need to appeal your financial aid award? If your financial aid award is smaller than expected, there are things that you can do. As mentioned in the previous slides, special circumstances like a job loss or medical expenses, they may help in the appeals process. In this situation where there is an under award of financial aid, you know the average need expected is right around $63,000 as listed on the table. But the actual award that was offered was around $42,000. Well, guess what? You've just experienced a $21,000 shortfall in aid. And that's leaving you on the hook for that additional out-of-pocket cost. In the situation of a misawarded aid package, when you're looking at this table where things just don't seem to add up, there could be errors that can account for the misaward of financial aid, such as a mistake on your FAFSA or any special circumstances that you haven't accounted for. The difference in the award can be significant, as an example shown in the table. So you're talking a difference of roughly around, like I said, around $21,000, if not more, in an under awarded situation, a misawarded situation, where the expected need is around $63,000. In gift aid, at 72%, self-help is 28%, but that where the actual award should have been around 52% in gifted aid and 48% in self-help. So there is benefits in appealing any award that you feel is not adequate. And here, right here, here's the comparisons of universities in Pennsylvania. We're looking at Pittsburgh, Penn State, Lehigh University, Villanova, Lafayette College, Dickinson College. In this table, comparison of these colleges, the University of Pittsburgh and Penn State, they're both public institutions. And the cost of attendance on its face is much lower than it is at a private university. Those being Lehigh, Villanova, Lafayette, Dickinson. However, the private colleges are in a better position to offer 80 to 100% of the financial aid to students who qualify, especially for additional aid and grants and institutional scholarships. This is mainly due to private institutions having larger endowments and are prepared to offer more aid, leaving the total EFC for these schools right around $5,100 as compared to the EFCs from University of Pittsburgh and Penn State at right around $3,000. So applying proper planning will in the end allow you to save on expenses and out-of-pocket costs if you get the proper assistance in getting getting the most aid for your child. I do want to touch on the importance of the college application as well, and bring up some factors here. About 3.7 million students in the US graduated high school in the 2021 school year from about 27,000 high schools. 3.3 million students from public schools and approximately 0.4 million from private schools. There were approximately 27,000 valedictorians, 27,000 salutatorians, 27,000 SGA presidents, 27,000 editors, 55,000 plus students scored 1,530 or higher on their SATs. In the US, high quality students totaled roughly around 180,000 plus. Around 22,000 students are admitted to colleges ranked in the top 10 each year. If we apply a 1% positive variance in the quality of a student's college application, that can make a huge difference in college admissions. We can raise this amount by properly planning the students' college experience through financial aid planning, as well as academics. I'm going to list just a few factors here. Let's list some factors by the College Board that we all know about, but I want to point out a couple especially that we may not think about so much. We all know about academic GPA. We know about class rank, extracurricular activities, but I just want to point out some things that you may not think about in planning. You want to think about the character and personal qualities. The students, whether the student is a first generation college student, where they live, the geographic location. You can also take into consideration the racial or ethnic status, any recommendations they receive, the rigor of any of their school courses, whether they are, there is a difference in a child that is an AB student taking regular classes versus an AB student taking honors or AP classes. That can make a difference. Your state of residency can make a difference. Also, whether they participate in volunteer work or work experience. All of these things can help maximize the child's ability to attend the university of their choice, as well as bolster any financial aid opportunity that they may have. We also want to look at some admission factors, how some colleges differentiate factors that are important from school to school. In this comparison of colleges, some schools place emphasis on factors and take into consideration when admitting students. However, if you notice, they're at different levels of importance from school to school. So a GPA, whether that can be that is a very important factor in all schools. There are other factors that they don't look at as being as important. They just look at those as being important, or they're just going to consider. I mentioned geographic residence. You see down here under Georgetown, for instance, geographic residence, they just consider that versus that being very important to them. Class rank at all of the schools are just important. They don't look at that as being very important or critical to the success of the student or being admitted in school and receiving a certain amount of aid. Now I want to get to the process and admissions. We all look at the entire college planning process beginning with the college search. However, knowing that a college education is not cheap, the financial planning aspect of the process should begin much sooner. Engaging in the financial plan in advance will reduce the stress over time. I've talked to many families, and when we talk about planning, the first thing they talk about is how are we going to get this done? Starting as early as possible is the key. It can help reduce stress over time, especially when it comes to factors like income, assets, investments, expenses, any special circumstances, tuition costs, expenses, interest rates and fees, and also student loans. The process in planning is always most likely going to involve some level of student loan. What we want to do is work to prevent borrowing as much, or borrowing. We want to prevent borrowing any more than you have to. You want to pay as little out of pocket as possible. Agm Institute and the number of people that are agents that we have on staff. We're experts at this. We help you through this plan, and we take you through all of the steps. What we recommend is that you do the proper planning and you talk to someone, even if it's not us, you talk to someone and you put a plan in place to maximize the success of getting the most aid possible. From the college search to financial aid to admissions, a solid plan, it just saves you money, it saves you time, it reduces stress, and helps to mitigate unforeseen issues when getting your child into college. It's just a fact. If you have questions, here's our contact information for the Institute. You can contact us at contact@agminstitute.org. This is our phone number, area code 571-765-7840, and our website is agminstitute.org. You can always also reach out to me. Once again, my name is Andre Ridley. I'm a financial aid consultant. My phone number is 804-464-7847. And my mobile number is 804-647-3325. You can always reach out to me by way of email as well at andre@aridleyifsp.com. I thank you so much for having me. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be glad to help you any way that I can. We are available anytime. And once again, thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak to you on the subject of planning to maximize the College Financial Aid Award for your child. I appreciate the time.
Amen. A lot of information to take in a short period of time. I do want to point out to the audience that's listening now and those who will be listening later that the presentation is recorded. You'll be able to go on to our Facebook page, that's Christ Our Redeemer Facebook page, and see it again. And should you have questions, again, Brother Andre Ridley's information is there to contact. And we will be sure to follow up with him if you should leave questions or comments in our Facebook page, or on our Facebook page, I should say. Brother Ridley, if you would be so kind to stop the sharing, and at this point, and then we'll bring everyone back on. I didn't see questions in the comments, but I do have a few based on what you shared. You said this several times, but you said as early as possible. Now, I'm assuming that as early as possible means as early as possible in the school year for those seniors who will be graduated from high school, based on where we are in the process of college search, college acceptance, FAFSA, filling out the FAFSA and getting those types of responses. Is that what you mean when you say as early as possible?
I do, because these things are time sensitive, especially if you expect to get the most aid that you can. Of course, when we talk about planning, we want people to plan throughout their child's lifetime when preparing. But when it gets down to the actual preparing for the time when your child is actually going to leave for college, getting these forms in timely is critical. As I mentioned, October 1st is a key date to remember. If you remember October 1st of each year, that's when these applications, the application process, or that season, you can say, begins. The CSS profile, as I mentioned, is a separate form that is not used by all colleges. It's mainly used by private universities. Around 300 or so universities use those. But the FAFSA form is used by every school. That is the form that you are going to use to apply for your federal aid. That includes Pell Grants, subsidized and unsubsidized student loans. That will tell you what you are eligible to receive. The schools will receive this information, and they will process this information and process this in order to offer you and your child, or offer the child, their financial aid package. Then the schools will also make an offer of aid institutionally that they will give the child in addition to the federal funds for school. All of this it will be delivered in the package, but the key is, as I mentioned, to follow these deadlines closely, and especially the school's deadlines when it comes to applying. The financial aid officers, these financial aid officers, they process thousands of applications each semester, spring, fall, even summer. So these kids will be able to get into school on time. They'll receive their maximum amount of aid they expect. And then you won't be disappointed or surprised if you say, okay, well, gosh, I waited till April to submit it. How come I didn't get as much money? Or you rush, you made some mistakes, it comes back and it's not what you expect. You need to give yourself enough time to reduce the stress of trying to get through this process. It's not, and I'm not going to say it's difficult, but it's not easy. You really need to pay attention to what you're doing and get proper guidance.
So we really need to have this conversation with you about 6 months ago, because here we are right in April. But in any regard, I mean, it is what it is. And there's some other challenges when it comes to there's the early application process, like you said,
Exactly.
and that's what's key, that October the 1st date and apply. Now, part of the challenge is with the kids, trying to get them to apply for, in my case, trying to get my son to apply for as many schools as possible and manage their current workload. It's almost like pulling teeth. You almost have to, get the cattle prod out and keep poking them. So as to you did a calculation, you showed a calculation that shows several schools. It may have been the ECF.
EFC,
expected family contribution. And in that calculation, in that table, you showed that scholarships at a very high rate, like 83%, I believe. Is that something that we could expect when we're applying?
No. That wasn't scholarships. No.
Okay.
83% of your aid is not going to be in scholarships. Okay. Well, what you want to pay attention to, 83% of your aid is going to be distributed after you've submitted all of your applications for aid, your FAFSA, all of that. That's all tied in together.
Okay.
Once the schools make their determinations, then they'll be able to determine what institutional aid that they're going to qualify for. That's where you may see some grants from the school. You may see some scholarship money from the school, and that some factors are in there as far as what schools will offer in grants and scholarships. Schools will have their own a lot of schools have their own internal scholarships and programs that they offer for their kids. That's separate. Then you're looking at your work study and what any work study award, that's self-help aid. First, any work study award or any loans that they qualify for. That is, and all of those two things are separate.
Okay.
You want to take those into consideration. Pay attention to what the school is going to be able to offer. And not all students want work study, but it's always to their benefit. As I mentioned, though, maximizing that aid depends on how quickly you get that application in. Time, optimal time, October 1st to mid-November, if you can. You can get that. You get those applications in, then you're in good shape. The schools have plenty of time to get the information, processing that information, and looking at what monies that they have internally to complement that federal aid, and make sure that student is going to get a proper award. We got to remember, as I mentioned too, the schools want to award aid to your students. However, their first responsibility is to that university, to that college. So they're going to evaluate every student. They want the best students, and they're going to base their aid on the quality of student that they can get, especially in larger universities. So that's one thing that you need to keep in mind. That's why it's so imperative that you are meeting these deadlines and these timelines that's established.
Okay. One last one from me for now is you mentioned during the evaluation, the aid evaluation process, they're going to look at everything. And in that scope of looking at everything, you mentioned retirement accounts. Why retirement accounts? Why do they consider the retirement accounts?
Because they're looking at it as potential income. They're looking at it, they're looking at that as income. Even though that you're not, you can't tangibly touch that money up until a certain time. That is an asset that they're going to look at. There are some factors included in that, whereas it may not count as much against you because there are tax advantages to having these plans. But that does not exclude them necessarily from as being counted as an asset that you can tap into in order to support your child in going to college. That's not discounted. There are guidelines set for those, but they're not necessarily excluded from the list of assets. You're going to have to list everything that you have. And upon that evaluation, they're going to determine what is going to count, what's going to count more, what's going to count less, what's not going to count. For instance, I'll give you another example. Life insurance policies. Mm-hmm. That is an asset, but life insurance policies don't count, are not counted against you because they have a significant tax advantage. So like when a life insurance policy, God forbid, a family member is lost and the life insurance claim pays out, that money has already been taxed. So that's a tax advantage to you that will not count against you as income received by planning on sending a child to college or having a child in college. So those are some of the things that you look at. So retirement accounts they're not off limits. They look at all of these things. They look at what they can look at as, and I hate to say count against you, but what they can use and count as an asset versus what they cannot use or what they won't look at.
So I apologize. I know Pastor Turner might have a couple of questions, but there was one other on my mind. You mentioned no matter how large your income. So I never count yourself out. Right. But you're saying, I know it's not just income, it's what you can contribute to the child's education, correct? Okay. So if your family contribution is high, then the likelihood of financial aid would be lower.
Well, you gotta look at it from two perspectives. Mm-hmm. You gotta look at what the university sees in terms of, even if you're a high income earner, what is it that you are going to be able to contribute to that child's education versus what you're not going to be contributing. If you're heavy in assets and investments, of course, that's fair game. But not everybody who has a high income is heavily invested. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who don't believe in putting all of their eggs in one basket. There are a lot of tax savvy individuals and families out here, and that also apply that same philosophy to their child. Don't forget, they're also looking at the child's assets. So you can have a high income earner, and they can also have a high income earner where there is a child who's working. There's a child who has some significant savings. That child you don't want a child to have $3,000-$4,000 in the bank. They're going to look at that. They're going to say, well, that child's doing very well. And it may be because you're being good to that child and you're making sure the child has money. However, that is going to be a detriment if you're expecting to get some financial aid. The child's assets are looked at just as closely and scrutinized as much as the parents.
Hey, Pastor Turner, did you have some questions, comments, thoughts?
I did have one question, and I'm not sure if you covered it in the presentation or not. Can you discuss the advantages and disadvantages of a child doing FAFSA on their own versus a child using their parents' information during FAFSA? Because I think if you're 18, please correct me if I'm wrong, if you're over 18 by the time you do FAFSA, you're independent of your parents at that time. And you can, I'm not sure what that actually looks like, but are there any advantages or disadvantages to sole student versus student with parent?
There's a number of factors involved in that. You can still be 18 years of age and still be a dependent of your parents, unless you've been emancipated or you're a ward of the court in situations like that. Basically, you have up until age 24,
Okay.
where you would not be dependent on your child, well, the child wouldn't be dependent on their parent, excuse me. But what you need to take into consideration with that student is that there are a number of factors involved where if a child would be left to their own devices to do that on their own, it would be tough, because if that child is dependent on the parent in any way, there's no way around that they will be awarded aid without listing any information on their parents, whether they have a relationship with their parent or not, whether they live with a guardian or a foster family, that they still are going to be required to report information regarding their parent situation. Now, there are instances where the universities that you're applying to will have their own documentation that's going to be required to explain why you are not listing, or you can't list any of your parents' information, your birth parents' information. So in that can be, once again, I'm not going to say it's difficult. It can be time consuming. Parents and students, when it comes to college, whether they live with them or not, whether they have a relationship with them or not, they're going to have to provide some type of information in regards to who they are, what assets they have, how can they help you, are they helping you, do they depend on you for any kind of support? It's just the way that these things are designed.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I didn't have any other questions that I could think of off the top of my head. How about you, Pastor Ruffin?
No more questions. I'll just say this: the whole goal, and I'm not speaking for Brother really, but from our perspective, the whole goal is to not get in a bunch of debt for college. The whole goal is to get as much scholarship, as much financial aid as possible, to minimize the debt load associated with loans for the student, as well as for student parent type loans. We want to make sure that we're being wise stewards of what little we do have, what the Lord allows us to have. So we don't want to, and so we see this in our community now. A lot of our kids are weighed down with that, basically in bondage when they leave school, and it's a challenge for them. So we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of expertise like Brother Ridley and AGM and others to ensure that we're minimizing the amount of debt load and maximizing the amount of scholarship and financial aid that's out there. AGM, Brother really has all kinds of expertise in this area. So please take advantage of it. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Pastor Turner. I think
if you don't mind, can I just want to say one other thing that, and I'll just keep this brief. I want us all to realize that we take into consideration what we're all doing for our children. But let's bear in mind too that kids, especially nowadays, they're under tremendous pressure. They're under tremendous pressure when they're trying to really think through what their next steps are going to be after high school, and they intend to enroll in college. This is a process that's going to affect it's going to affect them deeply. All they know, they want to apply for college and they want to go. They don't know what all the other aspects of planning and what their responsibility in this is. What I would just want to say is that it's very important, even if you are at a point where you haven't hit all of the deadlines and things like that, you really want to be sure that you are involved, that both you and your student are heavily involved in the planning process. Of course, the best time is to begin prior to their senior year in 11th grade. or even a little bit earlier than that, if possible, to get yourself set to apply for financial aid and get your college applications in. The thing to remember is that it's not only stressful for the parents, it's going to be stressful for the child. Get the proper guidance, get the proper materials and information, speak to whoever you have to speak to, like an organization like ours, or it doesn't have to be us, but make sure that you get the proper guidance from professionals who are experienced in this area that can help mitigate the stress and take that off of you and your child. That's just what I wanted to interject.
Amen. And yeah, I agree. I think children are dealing with a lot, even though, as youth, when we were kids, we were dealing with a lot. But, each generation has their own thing that they're dealing with. So I think helping our youth and children as much as we can navigate through life and through these new things, finances, for some people, this is a whole new ball game. So thank you so much for offering your services here at Christ the Redeemer and for what you've done, what you do for the body of Christ outside of the four walls of the church. So I will wrap up because we're one.
Did we lose him? Because he froze. Is he frozen? Okay. All right. I'm going to jump in because I think he's frozen. Let us look to the Lord. Father, oh, there he is. Boy, look at that. Look at that prayer. I was like, Jesus. Go ahead, Pastor Turner. I'm sorry.
Let's say a quick prayer before my internet goes out. God, we come to say thank you for this time. We say thank you for Brother Ridley and his ministry to help our youth to climb higher heights and go deeper within you and to do greater things in the community. Bless him, bless his organization and business, and bless those who've participated, whether it's now or in the future. This we ask in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you.
Amen. God bless you all.
Thank you so much.
All right.
God bless. Take care.